If you're implementing the release process, it's important to know when it's time to plant and crimp, and we're going to talk about that today. A relatively new implement is a crimper. Now, crimper is different than a flat roller, traditional roller, or a cultipacker. Those have very different uses than a crimper. And using a crimper to terminate a crop is dependent upon one of the biggest portions of the crop. If you got to monoculture that crop, or if you're planting a blend, something that's tallest or has the most biomass, being in the dough stage. To identify the dough stage, you want to get in the field, you actually get some seeds in your hand, tear the husk away. You know, the husk is that outer wrapping. Get down to the actual seed. If you're anywhere close to the dough stage, it will look like a seed. And then mash it, squeeze it between your fingernails, and see if it kind of erupts with some moisture coming out. Oftentimes that moisture will actually pop out on your fingernail or so. If it's got a husk, but you tear it apart and there's almost nothing in the middle, that is not the dough stage. That's premature. And depending on the species of plant, you probably got a week, 2 or 3 more to go before you get to the dough stage. Crimping works so well to terminate annual plants when they're in the dough stage, because when that plant is making that seed, it's filling it out. It's not just starting. I mean, that seed's almost there, it's filling it out. That plant is giving it all it's got. It's taking all the nutrients, everything out of the root system, and pouring into the seed. It's its last best shot to pass on its offspring, the seed. So the plant is very stressed. And when you use that crimper and it breaks the plant's circulatory system about every 8 inches or so, it terminates that plant. Maybe to help illustrate this, if you think about driving through your yard, which is probably some type of perennial grass, comes back every year, you leave tire tracks in there and it looks messy for a day or two, and then you can't tell where you drove because those perennial plants are not producing seed at that time, and it gets smashed down and it just stands back up. Or if you've used a flat roller or your tire tracks again, driving through a hayfield or something, you'll notice that it usually stands back up. That's why that crimper with the fins on it is so effective. It's important to test your field, when you're getting ready to plant those few weeks ahead of time before the dough stage, because you want to drill through what we call planting green. You're going to drill right through that crop before the dough stage. You drill hopefully a week or so right before the dough stage. Those seeds are probably starting to show, or they're showing but certainly not filled out yet. And that gives you about a week or so for your new crop to, get ready to germinate or slightly germinate. Maybe it's out of ground an inch or so before you crimp. If you plant way too early, that new crop will get too tall and the crimper could harm it. What researchers have found with soybeans, a real tender crop, is as long as it hasn't made its 3rd set of leaves, it just stands back up from tire tracks or the crimper. But if it's gotten pretty tall, maybe 7, 8, 9 inches tall, you could terminate some of those new seedlings and your stand would end up being thin. I talk about cereal rye a lot because for us food plotters, that's often part of a blend, and it's going to make the most biomass unless your blend has just very few pounds of cereal rye in there. So it's tall. Guys should get chest tall on me or taller, big, waving around the wind. Maybe you got clover, brassicas down below it. And you start seeing little things. They look like almost a little 1/4-inch little worm coming out between the seed heads. Well, that's the pollen. And you go walk through there, be yellow stuff blowing around. If you drive through with your tractor, it'd be on the radiator front. That is not time to crimp. It's just pollinating. Certainly the seeds are not maturing when it's just making pollen. On a longer time scale, you would think about oak dust or pine pollen turning everything yellow in the south. Well, it's a long time before that seed forms in the pine cone. So the pollen stage is not when you should crimp.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Green Cover Food Plots, Winchester, PH Outdoors, Moultrie Mobile, Steel, Fleet Outdoor Apparel, Morel Targets, Fourth Arrow, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Ward Laboratories, Burris Optics, G5 Broadheads, Prime Bows, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
The other side of the coin could be waiting too late. You're going, oh my goodness, or you got out of town or something. And when I say too late, this is not a day or two. This is over a period of weeks. You go out there and the seed heads have turned yellow or, not green at all. And you peel the husk back and it's hard, or you chew on it and it's hard. It's like a kernel of wheat or cereal rye. Well, those seeds, or some percent of them, are gonna be viable. And if you crimp or do something, it's like planting. So you planted one seed and got that cereal rye stalk that made 40, 60, 80 seeds. So if you knock it all down, those are not just free volunteer seeds coming up. They're gonna be way too many and too thick. And at the wrong time of year. We don't plant cereal rye at the time we do a spring food plot or a spring commercial crop. So we don't want to plant cereal rye at that time. And that's why it's important to plant at that pollen stage or right before that, and then crimp during the dough stage, so you've terminated that crop before the seeds are mature and you get a really thick volunteer stand that's going to outcompete the summer crop. It's important to plant first. If you crimp first, it's gonna be really difficult for any drill to cut through all that duff. You're gonna put like 4 inches of hay on the ground and then expect your drill to slice through there and get the seed in the soil. Really difficult. If you follow that system, well guys, you're gonna terminate the crop without using herbicide. You've just laid down all that mulch, which is gonna keep the moisture in the soil for that brand new crop, just like mulching your garden or a flower bed. And it's going to keep weeds at bay. Our seeds come up, but the weed seeds, most weed seeds, are not strong enough to do that. And that weed mat is our weed protection. Again, these stages are weeks long, not days long. So you don't have to panic, oh, I missed my day. You got some time. We're going to be in the pollen stage for, a couple weeks probably, early, mid, late. Then we're in the dough stage for quite some time, weeks, not days, weeks. I hope this helps you so you can have a very successful planting season and a great crop this summer. Understanding these natural processes of seeds, something's growing, it makes seed, it dies, and then it grows again. You plant those seeds and it grows again, is a really great illustration of Christ's life, death, and resurrection, the greatest gift we've ever had. And that gift alone changed the world. So I hope y'all will take time every day to enjoy His creation and, more importantly, seek His will for our lives. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.